practice problems 4, 5, and 6. We are trying to find the simplest form of these fractions. So let's jump in here and start with the first one. We have 28 over 42. So first find all the factors of the numerator. So that would be 1 and 28, 2 and 14. 3 is not a factor. 4 times 7. 5 isn't a factor. 6 isn't a factor. Moving on to the denominator, we would have 1 and 42, 2 and 21, 3 and 14. 4 is not a factor, 5 is not a factor, 6 times 7. So here, if we're looking, the greatest common factor in both lists would be 14. So divide both the numerator and denominator by 14. And we get 2 over 3. 2/3 is the simplest form of 28 over 42. Continuing on to practice problem 5, we have 60 over 75. And again, start by listing out the factors of each number. So 60 would be 1 times 60, 2 times 30, 3 times 20, 4 times 15, 5 times 12, 6 times 10, and 7 is not a factor, 8 is not a factor, 9 is not a factor, and then we're back to the 10 there. So we would just start regenerating factors. So we move on to 25. We have 1 times 75, 2 is not a factor, 3 times 25, 4 is not a factor. We would have 5 times 15, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, not factors. So we get the whole way up to 15, it won't be a factor. So if we're looking here for the greatest common factor, we can see that 15 is going to be the greatest common factor between the two. So divide both the numerator and denominator by 15. So we'll do 60, and I'm just going to drop down here a little bit so we're out of the mess that was created up there. So 60 divided by 15 and 75 divided by 15. 15 is times 4, so 60 divided by 15 is 4. 75 divided by 15 is 5. So this, in simplest form, is 4/5. For practice number 6, we have 54. Let's go back there. Let's make that. Just change that to the standard black pen there. Sorry about that. 54 over 80. And start by listing out the factors of each. So we would have 1 and 54. 2 times 27. 3 times 18. 4 is not a factor. 5 is not a factor. 6 times 9. And then 7 and 8 are not factors. So moving down to 80, we'd have 1 and 80. 2 and 40. 3 is not a factor. 4 and 20. 5 and let's see, 5 times 10 would be 50, so we need 30 would be 16, so 5 times 16. 6 is not a factor, 7 is not a factor, 8 times 10, 9 is not a factor, and then we would wind up back at 80. So now looking here for the greatest common factor between the two, let's see, we have 1s, we have 2s, 3 and 18, there's no 3 or 18, 6 and 9. So it looks like 2 is the greatest common factor here. And dividing those out, we would get 27. So 54 divided by 2 is 27. And 80 divided by 2 is 40. So the simplest form of 54 over 80 is 27 over 40.